Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and thanks for tuning in. So today the book that I'm going to be discussing with you guys is a really cool book called Jackal by Miss Erin E. Adams. So Jackal was actually a pretty cool book because it's very different from what I'm used to reading. So I'll give you like a quick overview. We meet Liz, the main character, and she's from a small town in Pennsylvania, which was predominantly white. So at school, I believe that she was one of the few black kids at the school that she went to, and then she didn't really fit in with the white kids, or didn't really fit in with the black kids in her town either, because they didn't. She wasn't acting the way that everybody was expecting her to. She was always like a little different. So like, as you can imagine, it wasn't easy for her growing up there, and eventually she grew up and like left the city and was living a life like in like another city that was a bit, I guess, more metropolitan or something like that. But then like her best friend from childhood was getting married, so she had to come back in town to attend the wedding. So the wedding is actually set in the woods, which should have been the red flag number one. When I was reading this, I was like, WTF, because why would anybody want to get married in the wood? It makes no sense to me. If I was to get invited in a wedding in the woods, I would assume that you're trying to kill me or you're plotting something, because I just don't get it. But clearly the character didn't see that, because although Liz actually has a big fear of the woods because of things that have happened to her in her childhood, she sucks it up and goes to the wedding. So Melissa, her best friend, was getting married to a black man, and she had a biracial daughter named Caroline. And Liz was supposed to watch over Caroline during the wedding, and then some way, somehow, Caroline went missing. So she was nowhere to be found, and everybody was looking for her. Eventually, the police gets involved, so there's like a huge search party. Everybody gets involved, and Liz starts to realize that there seems to be a connection or like some sort of like pattern. And what she sees is that there has been a black girl missing almost every year around June for many years. And she goes back to even her friend or like a girl that she was cool with. Her name was Keisha. She was another black girl who went missing back then when she was a teen. And Keisha seemed to have been taken away by some sort of like dark and shadowy thing or person or man or figure in the woods. So Liz remembers that. She makes that connection, but she seems to be the only one who makes that connection. So then the rest of the book, for one, she's trying to find Caroline and hoping that she is still alive. And then she also tries to figure out what has been happening to all these black girls. And lastly, she has to face that like the fear of the woods that she has in the process. So that's pretty much what the book is about. It was a really cool book, definitely a page turner. So it reads a bit like a thriller, but with like a big like horror vibe to it, with a little bit of like mystery and like paranormal. Like, it's really one of those books that you cannot put like in a box, which I really like. And it also covers a lot of themes, right? So mind you, I've only read it once. If I was to read it again, I'm sure there's other themes that I would notice again, because it was really like smart writing. And like there's some stuff that I even highlighted because it was really powerful. And when you read it, it never feels like the author is like trying to tell you what to think or trying to teach you a lesson. It never feels self-righteous. It just feels like something very honest and raw, and you're forced to face it. Like, it's almost like looking at society or looking at something in a mirror and being forced to look at things for what they truly are. And so one of the main things, as you can imagine, it's kind of like the idea of like facing your own demons and facing your fears. So, Liz, as I told you, like, she's from that town, and it was really hard for her to grow up in that setting. So she left in the city to make a life for herself, but she never truly faced like her demons and faced some of the harsh things that were happening in her city. She never really, I feel like she ran away from her life as opposed to like facing it. So she's kind of forced to do that as she is coming back and trying to find Caroline and trying to figure out what has been happening for so long. There's also the theme of like social class and racism, of course. And yeah, the idea of identity as well. Because it's interesting because Liz is a black girl who didn't act the way that black kids expected her to act, and also didn't act the way that white kids expected her to. So she never was quite like in a box that society would have loved to place her in. But also, and add a layer to that, is that Liz is like the child of an immigrant. I never know if it makes you like a first or second generation, but anyways, her mom is an immigrant, her mom is an immigrant from Haiti, And it's kind of cute, because when her mom speaks to her, like she often is speaking to her in Creole. So I'm from Montreal, which has like a big Haitian community. So there's a few things that I've heard like my mom's friends say as well. So yeah, it was kind of cute to kind of see those little moments. But yeah, Liz is someone who has a complex identity, and she has kind of to find herself throughout that book. But with all that said, I have to say that I found myself judging Liz a lot. So I when I was reading this, I was like, I don't really like that girl, or she makes no sense to me. And I think the reason why what triggered me with Liz is how much of a doormat she was for a lot of a lot of times in her life. Like, for example, and I get it. Like, you're a kid, you're different, you want to fit in. I totally understand. But for instance, Melissa, has a brother who is a bit more like openly racist than like the average person. And when they were young, I think they were kids, he actually called her the N-word, or like something like very like obviously racist, right? So yes, he was reprimanded for it, but for me, it's like if something was to happen to me at someone's house, I would never go back there. So I don't know. For me, it was kind of hard to relate to how much Liz has rolled with the punches in her life. But to her credit, I will say though that like the Liz at the beginning of the book is not the same Liz as like at the end of the book. So I will give her that. I do wish that Liz was a little bit more likable, and maybe it's selfish of me, because I mean it's like a dark story, so it's kind of hard to have someone who's like a happy camper in a book like that. But I do wish that if there was something about Liz that I liked more, then it would have been more of me rooting for her. Because when I was reading this, I was reading it because I wanted to know what has been happening to all these girls, and I also wanted to see if Caroline was alive or not. So it was definitely a page turner, but I feel like if Liz was more likable, then in the process I would have been rooting for her, even as I was reading this. So that's kind of like the only thing that I would have done different, but I don't think maybe somebody else wouldn't mind that at all. And another thing about Liz in the book, and that's something that I don't think everybody would agree on either, is that I don't think Melissa is the good friend that people think she is, or that like Melissa herself is portraying herself to be. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes when things are hard, then people show their true colors. And I do feel like Melissa is not as kind and open and non-racist as she portrays herself to be. So to put you more in context, right? Liz, when she was a teenager, she was that awkward black girl. She didn't have any friends. And then Melissa is that one person who liked her and then decided to be her friend. And so that's why in the book, it feels a lot like Liz feels like Melissa did her a favor by being her friend. Do you know what I mean? But Melissa is like one of those girls who gives me the vibes of someone who might not be racist, where she would like call you the N-word or like say something mean to you. She'll even be nice to you on the surface, but deep down, I think there is bias, and there is something that's not true, very genuine. And that is despite her having a biracial daughter and despite her being married to a black man. So it is quite interesting, because sometimes when people get called out on some behaviors, they're like, oh, no, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, or like my kid is biracial, but it doesn't change the fact that you still might have some bias at the very least, or you could still be racist. Like, do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious to see what other people make of Melissa, because I really didn't like that girl at all. I'm talking about her as if like she's a real person who owes me money, but I just did not like her. So yeah, with that said, overall, it's a book that has a lot of twists and turns. And just when you think someone is good, just when you think someone has it together, then you see something else. So I don't want to give too much away, so I'll make it a bit shorter than most of my beauty videos. But yes, definitely a fun book to read, because it's one of those books that throughout my day, I was looking forward to going home so I could like get further in the story and see what happens. So I highly recommend it. And if you have read it, by all means, share with me what you thought about it. What do you think about Melissa? Because I don't like that girl again. So yeah, tell me what you thought about the book. And if you do like my content, don't forget to like and share and subscribe. And I will see you for my next video.